Maybe from the outside, it's a bit confusing and definitely strange that this motley crew of farmers and artists, scientists and educators come together and get really animated talking about soil. So it's a fair question. What's the big deal about soil? That's me, Brooke Singer, an artist, educator, and self-taught soil nerd from New York City. And that's Dallas McCann, farm manager at White Feather Farm in Saugerties, New York, in the Hudson Valley.
I just remember the first day we met that as we went walking around and checked out the farm and talked about things, and I started understanding more of what the idea was of just like a process that's teaching people how to and what carbon sequestration is and what building soil looks like and why it's important and how to do it.
I initiated Carbon Sponge at the New York Hall of Science in 2018 as a designer in residence, as a way to introduce regenerative agriculture to urban green spaces. And the team included artists, educators, and urban gardeners like myself, but also soil scientists, agroecologists, and land stewards of all kinds. Soil is attracting attention from various people across urban and rural places due to the fact that it's a limited and also threatened resource that has the potential to help solve at least part of the climate crisis. Scientists right now are in the process of redefining the very nature of what is soil due to recent discoveries. And soil is the most biodiverse environment on Earth.
But as I learned more about it, and as we discussed more about the projects we were doing in the city, and how we needed some type of a baseline for projects to start a carbon sponge, I think we just happened to be cruising around by our current carbon sponge, and it was just this awkward little rectangle that I didn't know what to do with. And the soil was very silty and not much life at all. I can't wait to look at the first test that we did. And I thought, this is as bad as it gets, let's start here.
Dig in here a little bit. And we're gonna get our baseline with our tools. We're also getting a baseline from Cornell.
Okay.
So that's gonna be a great starting point for us, and then we're gonna start collecting data every 2 weeks.
White Feather Farm's Carbon Sponge is an experimental plot for Dallas and his crew to try different practices like low-till, polycropping, and keeping living roots in the ground all year long. It's a low-risk and fun approach to carbon farming for the first time and builds confidence in cultivation methods that could be unfamiliar. Through this season, we're tracking soil changes with easy-to-use and inexpensive tools in the Carbon Sponge kit, coupled with less frequent professional lab testing. We're looking at a range of characteristics, like are we increasing soil microbial life, essential to building healthy soil, and for long-term carbon sequestration.
This network that we're creating, I think, is helping to give another tool to the inventory of these small farmers that aren't normally available, because all that research is geared towards massive conventional farms. So there's not enough framework for the small scale farmer. There's not enough support systems or science community backed behind the small scale farmers, because people are more worried about the mega farms and the big places.
We started the Carbon Sponge Hub at White Feather Farm. That includes 5 other small farms, all within the Hudson Valley and Catskill region.
I'm Fabio. This is Nimble Roots Farm. We're just outside the town of Catskill. We're always interested in collaborating with other farmers and interested in anything related to the environment, sustainability. Thought it was a cool project, a good way to network with local farmers, and that has been the case so far. Soil testing is going to allow us to hone in on what our soil needs. So yeah, moving forward, I think it's really going to increase the potential of this land for us. Yeah, we do a lot of cover cropping. At least we're trying to learn about cover cropping and do better. We're going to do more perennial plantings, hopefully more sorghum plantings. We're still learning the land very much, figuring out what the land needs and how we can best create production systems that work with the land.
My name is Catherine. So I teach sciences in the biological department. So I teach molecular-based science at Brooklyn College, and at Lehman College I teach microbiology. So when I was called to carbon sponge, at the beginning I was called to help just with plants, to help with planting and deciding what kind of plants to put in the sponge. And then I saw the same level of curiosity and the same level of trying to understand the ecosystem. What are we doing to this ecosystem? Should we just extracting it, or should we just trying to preserve it? And carbon sponge is trying to do both things. We need to use the ecosystem and the benefit of society, yes, absolutely. But we also need to use the benefit of nature and value it because it's nature.
Scientists have learned a lot about microbiology in the soil in the last several decades. And there's been this explosion of new knowledge really recently. There is a lot left to learn, but what we do know that soil microbes are at the center of the carbon sequestration story.
So right now I'm operating just growing flowers and herbs, mostly flowers at this point. I do a CSA in Brooklyn and in the Hudson Valley, and then I have a farm stand. I do a little bit of wholesale, and these are all like mixed bouquets of flowers. Well, where we're sitting right now is in my favorite section of the farm because of the living pathways, which are white clover, and they're sort of tying each bed together through root systems, and I just feel like the plants are remarkably healthier in this section overall. But then also, we had a drought this summer, and the plants in this section I feel like thrived through the drought a little bit better than the ones without this network holding the soil structure together, holding the moisture in, and so that's also helped with the erosion.
My students should think about, you are a doctor and the soil is your patient. Ask a question, something that we don't do it, doctors don't do it. Ask the soil for their condition. What is your condition? That's the first question before you're trying to fix the problem. Ask it. What is your condition? Then ask, how can I help? Make sure the soil answers back to you. They say, yeah, this is what I want you to help. You need to have a conversation. We believe that we have the answers. So we start adding things and treating soil as this non-sentient. And to me, that's not true. Microorganisms give the sentient to the soil.
Microbes are hanging out around the plant roots in soil in an area that we call the rhizosphere. And this is because they're summoned by the plant through its exudates. This is liquid that is full of carbon, mostly in the form of sugar, that plants leak from their roots. The substance is created during photosynthesis, which is not just producing plant food as we learned in school, but between 20 to 60% of this liquid carbon passes into the soil to feed microbes. In exchange for food, the microbes are delivering nutrients to the plants. It's a really beautiful interspecies dependency or symbiosis. Scientists show that plants are actually altering the amount and makeup of their exudates to signal different microbes depending on what the plant needs at the time. This is pretty compelling evidence of plant intelligence. Exudates are important because they are shown to be a stable source of carbon in the soil, maybe even more so than leaf litter, which has been the focus for a long time. So knowing this, farmers can keep living roots in the ground, pumping that liquid carbon all year long. This paves the way for carbon sequestration. Carbon dioxide from the air is transformed in the plant into this liquid energy, which enters the soil through the roots and gets eaten by the microbes, which in turn multiply. Those microbes build new soil and soil with structure that can hold onto the carbon if humans don't disrupt the ecosystem too much. An ecosystem with thriving microbes also holds onto water, cycles nutrients better, filters runoff, and so on. It's truly abundance at work.
My name is Tyler Huff. I run Mossy Stone Farms in the Catskills, 2,000 feet up. We're a no-till market garden and rice water garden. You can't just keep growing without thinking in terms of what you're doing and destructive to soil biome. You know, so then you have to reintroduce. So you have to take care of it. You have to steward the soil. You know, for instance, if you look at like indigenous Americans, and they wouldn't grow on the same plot year after year. They would abandon a plot after something like 5 to 7 years, and then they would wait 5 to 10 years, and they would come back to it and let it basically regenerate. You know, you can't really do that on a 1,000-acre farm in the Midwest, or you can't do it on. I'm not going to abandon this place and like move over there and then come back. There's a lot of questions about this term regenerative, and I think it's a misnomer. I think there needs to be a better term.
One of the things I like the most about this is that it's a network of people, that we are all learning things. Even the people that are giving out recommendations are all learning sort of how to approach this on not just an individual level, but like as a group. You know, us sharing information, us supporting each other. We're not experts, but we are very curious-minded and trying to figure things out. So I think that goes a long way rather than just being an expert.
One plant we're really curious about, and I admittedly am somewhat obsessed with, is sorghum. It is a grain originally from East Africa that is climate smart, so to speak, because it's heat loving, does well in poor soils, has deep roots, and is drought tolerant. It also accumulates silica in its tissue, which is known to be a binder with carbon. On the human end of things, sorghum grain is flavorful, nutritious, and gluten-free. The stalks can also be pressed for sweet syrup.
It's a beautiful plant. It's a little bit of a mystery, so I like want to learn more about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sorghum's an interesting plant.
First time growing sorghum, and it's pretty incredible how much it grew. This year was one of the driest years that I've ever experienced, and that a lot of farmers in the area have ever experienced.
In 2022, we grew over 2,000 sorghum plants. We hand harvested, threshed, and winnowed the grain. Can we grow a crop that returns more carbon to the soil than is emitted through its production and distribution? Can a product be carbon negative, not through offsets like planting a tree, but through the actual process of creating it? Maybe it's a long shot. I don't know. Not sure it's been done before, but we're gonna give it a try.
What are you going to use it for? You're going to make flour out of it?
We're gonna make a beer out of it.
Oh.
Hopefully.
Sorghum beer.
Sorghum
Okay.
beer.
Crazy.
That's what we're gonna use your sorghum for.
Okay. I hope to have a glass of that
Yeah.
when it's ready.